Throughout history, the rise and fall of empires has often been accompanied by one strange, unsettling practice: inbreeding. This practice, seen from the royal courts of Europe to the ancient pharaohs of Egypt, has left its mark in ways both visible and tragic. But why did these powerful families choose to marry within their own bloodlines, despite the clear risks? Take Charles II of Spain, for example. The unfortunate result of decades of intermarriage within the Habsburg family. He struggled with countless health issues, and his reign marked the end of the Habsburg dynasty. His story isn't isolated. Think of the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun, who was a product of a brother-sister marriage. Like Charles II, he suffered from numerous physical problems throughout his life. You might wonder, why would these influential figures engage in such risky practices? The reasons were varied, but the central theme often boiled down to power. Royal families were determined to keep control of their thrones, believing that preserving their bloodline was the key to maintaining their strength and status. The risks seemed small in comparison to the potential rewards of keeping the power within the family. But, as history has shown, inbreeding would ultimately prove to be a dangerous gamble, one that defied nature's need for genetic diversity. Inbreeding was not just a European or Egyptian issue. Its shadow stretched across the globe. From the royal courts to remote island communities, families sought to keep wealth, status, and power within their own ranks. For many, the practice was seen as a way to protect their heritage, preserve their wealth, and ensure their bloodline remained pure. In ancient Egypt, the pharaohs married within their families to prevent their power from slipping into the hands of outsiders. A famous example is a union between Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. Their marriage was not just about love. It was a strategic move to keep the throne in their bloodline and maintain their dynasty. In Europe, the Habsburg family's practice of intermarrying within their own bloodline became notorious. The Habsburg jaw, a physical trait resulting from generations of close marriages, became a symbol of the family's pursuit of power. But this consolidation of power came at a high cost. The Habsburgs, particularly Charles II, who suffered from both physical and mental ailments, showed just how devastating inbreeding could be. His health problems were directly tied to his family's generations of intermarriages, and his reign marked the end of a dynasty that once dominated Europe. But inbreeding wasn't only a practice among kings and queens. In isolated communities, where marriage options were limited, inbreeding was sometimes a matter of necessity. These small, secluded groups had fewer partners to choose from, and for them, marriage within the family was seen as a way to keep their communities intact. The consequences of such unions, however, could be just as severe as those seen in royal families. Look at the case of King Tutankhamun, the famous boy king. He ascended to the throne at a young age, but his life was plagued by severe health issues, likely the result of inbreeding within his family. Studies of his mummy revealed multiple genetic disorders, including a clubfoot and signs of malaria, both of which were linked to practice of marrying close relatives. Tut's tragic story isn't just about the gold and treasures he left behind. It's a reminder of how the decisions of his family had lasting consequences. Even in the royal palaces of Europe, the cost of inbreeding was evident. The House of Habsburg, known for its extensive family marriages, hoped to keep power in their grasp. Yet, despite their political savvy, the consequences of these unions were far-reaching, often leading to stillbirths, infant deaths, and various physical and mental disabilities among their heirs. Charles II's life serves as a stark reminder that the pursuit of purity in bloodlines and power could often lead to tragic ends. Looking back, the practice of inbreeding within royal families and isolated communities alike serves as a warning. What was once seen as a way to preserve power and wealth ultimately proved to be a fatal flaw. It's a fascinating, if tragic, part of history, one that reminds us of the unpredictability of human decisions and the lasting impact of such choices. As time passed, the inability to produce heirs became an urgent problem, threatening to extinguish the royal bloodline that had been so carefully guarded. The most dramatic consequence of this was seen in the case of Charles II of Spain. Despite 2 marriages, he failed to have any heirs. His health issues, the result of generations of inbreeding within the Habsburg family, led to the collapse of their dynasty in Spain. His death in 1700 left a power vacuum, sparking the War of Spanish Succession as European powers fought to claim the vacant throne. The British royal family, a web of ties. The British monarchy, like a grand tapestry, has been intricately woven with the threads of power, tradition, and blood ties. Though not as infamous as the Egyptian Pharaohs or the Habsburgs or their intermarriages, the British royal family has its own tangled history of closely intertwined marriages, shaping its destiny in subtle but significant ways. The tradition of marrying within close family circles dates back to the medieval period, when consolidating power and securing political alliances were vital. One such marriage was between King Edward III and Philippa of Hainaut, his second cousin. This union would set the stage for generations of influence, with their bloodline playing a pivotal role in shaping British history. The legacy of intermarriage within the British royals reached its peak with Queen Victoria, often called the grandmother of Europe. Her reign, lasting from 1837 to 1901, saw her children marry into various royal families across Europe, establishing a vast network of interconnected bloodlines. Queen Victoria herself married her first cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and together they had 9 children. However, this practice of marrying within the family was not without its consequences. One of the most tragic outcomes was the spread of hemophilia, a genetic blood disorder. It is believed that Queen Victoria passed this condition on to her children, particularly her son Leopold, Duke of Albany, who suffered from severe health complications due to the disease. This disorder, often referred to as a royal disease, spread to other European royal families, leaving a tragic mark on their legacy. By the 20th century, attitudes toward marriage within close family ties began to shift, reflecting a better understanding of genetics and changing social norms. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and Queen Elizabeth II, for instance, were third cousins, both great-great-grandchildren of Queen Victoria. Since their marriage, however, there have been no other instances of close familial unions within the British royal family, marking a shift in the monarchy's marital traditions. The invisible hand of genetics. Human genetics is a marvel of nature, with each person carrying a unique genetic blueprint. However, when these genetic threads are too closely intertwined, problems arise. Inbreeding, the practice of marrying close relatives, has left its indelible mark throughout history, often manifesting in genetic disorders and health complications. The impact of inbreeding can be traced back to ancient civilizations, where familial unions were often arranged to preserve power and wealth. But the true consequences of these practices remained hidden for centuries, only uncovered by the advances in genetics. The study of genetics, a relatively recent field, has shed light on the dangers of inbreeding. Gregor Mendel, the father of modern genetics, laid the groundwork for understanding heredity in the 19th century. His work on pea plants helped us understand how traits are passed down through generations. Mendel's discoveries revealed that inbreeding can increase the likelihood of inheriting harmful traits and amplify the risk of genetic disorders. These disorders often remain hidden within families, only to emerge when closely related individuals reproduce. As the field of genetics progressed, scientists like Sir Ronald Aylmer Fisher, a British statistician, helped further our understanding of inbreeding by developing the concept of the coefficient of inbreeding. This tool allows us to measure the likelihood of harmful genetic traits being passed on when close relatives marry, helping to assess the risks of inbreeding, isolated communities, and genetic challenges. The consequences of inbreeding are not limited to history. Today, in many isolated communities around the world, consanguineous marriages, marriages between close relatives, are still common, often due to geographical isolation or limited marriage options. One such example is the island of Pingelap in Micronesia, where a significant portion of the population suffers from achromatopsia or total colorblindness. This condition has spread due to the limited gene pool on the island, highlighting the genetic risks associated with inbreeding. Thankfully, advances in genetic counseling and screening offer hope. Pioneers like Sheldon Reed, who coined the term genetic counseling in the 1940s, have made it possible for people to make informed decisions about their family planning, reducing the risks associated with inbreeding. Inbreeding in the animal kingdom. In nature, the practice of inbreeding is far from uncommon. While humans have long recognized its dangers, many animal species regularly engage in inbreeding as a part of their survival strategy. Charles Darwin, the famous naturalist, was among the first to observe the effects of inbreeding in animals and plants. His experiments with self-fertilization in plants led him to conclude that mating between close relatives can reduce the vitality and fertility of offspring. The consequences of inbreeding in the animal kingdom are particularly evident in endangered species. One such example is the Florida panther, a majestic creature that once roamed the wilds of Florida in numbers too few to avoid inbreeding. This small population led to genetic issues, including heart defects and kinked tails, threatening the survival of the species. However, nature often has a way of correcting these problems. In 1995, wildlife biologists introduced 8 female Texas cougars into Florida panthers' habitat in an effort to diversify the gene pool. This genetic rescue led to a significant recovery in the panther population, proving the power of introducing fresh genetic material to counter the effects of inbreeding. Elsewhere in the world, in places like the Galapagos Islands, animals like the Galapagos hawk have also faced the challenges of inbreeding. Though isolated on their island, these hawks have developed mechanisms to purge harmful genetic traits, showing how nature adapts to the pressures of genetic bottlenecks. In the tiny world of insects, inbreeding plays a role in the highly cooperative societies of ants and bees. These species reproduce through a system called haplodiploidy, where males are produced from unfertilized eggs, resulting in highly related sisters. This form of inbreeding contributes to the highly cooperative behavior of these insects, allowing them to thrive despite the genetic risks. Genetic ripples in isolated human communities. In the remote corners of the world, where human communities have lived in isolation for centuries, the practice of intermarriage has left its mark on the gene pool. These isolated communities often face the same genetic challenges as the animal kingdom, with inbreeding leading to an increased frequency of genetic disorders. But with new scientific understanding, there is hope that these communities can mitigate the risks of inbreeding and continue to thrive in an ever-changing world. The story of inbreeding in isolated communities unfolds like a quiet, complex dance, where tradition and necessity intertwine, revealing deep insights into the intricate workings of genetics. To understand this, let's journey back to the 18th century and the rugged, remote island of Tristan da Cunha in the South Atlantic. Discovered by Portuguese explorer Tristão da Cunha in 1506, the island became a fascinating chapter in human history. But it wasn't until 1816, during the Napoleonic Wars, that the British Navy settled there to prevent French occupation. As the years passed, the island's population slowly grew, but remained largely isolated from the outside world. This created a tight-knit community with limited genetic diversity, a situation that, over generations, highlighted the impact of inbreeding. Today, the island's population of around 250 people stands as a living testament to the genetic consequences of isolation. Hereditary disorders, like retinitis pigmentosa, a progressive vision loss, have become more prevalent here, showing the challenges of maintaining genetic health in a small, closed-off group. Yet isolation isn't just about geography. Cultural seclusion can lead to similar genetic outcomes. A striking example of this can be found within the history of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, in North America. This religious group, which practices polygamy and places a high value on large families, has remained largely isolated from mainstream society due to its strict beliefs. By the late 20th century, under leaders like Warren Jeffs, the FLDS moved further into seclusion, creating a scenario where a large portion of the community could trace their lineage back to just a few ancestors. This led to the emergence of rare genetic disorders, such as fumarase deficiency, a severe neurological condition. Despite these challenges, the community remains tightly knit, demonstrating their resilience in the face of adversity. Their experience underscores a complex relationship between culture, genetics, and inbreeding, modern tools shielding us from inbreeding. As the 21st century unfolded, the understanding of genetics took a giant leap forward, ushering in what we now call the genomic era. One of the most significant milestones came in 2003 with completion of the Human Genome Project. This global effort sequenced the entire human genome, offering us a detailed map of our genetic makeup. This monumental achievement opened the door to pinpointing genetic disorders and laid the foundation for personalized medicine, forever transforming how we approach health. With this newfound knowledge, we gain the tools to better understand and prevent the dangers of inbreeding. Genetic testing and counseling have become vital tools in avoiding the negative effects of closely related marriages. Genetic testing allows us to analyze DNA for changes or mutations that could lead to health issues. It can identify carriers of recessive genes that, when passed down through inbreeding, might result in serious health problems for future generations. A noteworthy example of genetic testing's power can be seen in the Dor Yeshurun program, founded by Rabbi Joseph Eckstein in Brooklyn, New York in the 1980s. Having lost 4 children to Tay-Sachs disease, a rare and fatal genetic disorder, Eckstein created the program to prevent similar tragedies within the Ashkenazi Jewish community. Through confidential genetic screening and a matching service for potential couples, the program has dramatically reduced the occurrence of Tay-Sachs and other genetic diseases, demonstrating how genetic testing can help mitigate the risks of inbreeding. Alongside genetic testing, genetic counseling plays an essential role in guiding individuals and families through the complexities of genetic health. Much like a lighthouse guiding ships through dangerous waters, genetic counselors help people understand the implications of genetic disorders and offer advice on managing those risks. One of the early pioneers in this field, Sheldon Reed, coined the term genetic counseling in the 1940s. His work at the Institute for Human Genetics in Minneapolis laid the groundwork for what has now become a vital profession. Reed's philosophy, that genetic counseling should empower individuals to make informed decisions about their health, remains central to the field today. The advent of these modern genetic tools is a scientific triumph, but also a beacon of hope for those facing the challenges of inbreeding. With genetic testing and counseling, we are equipped with powerful tools to prevent the adverse effects of inbreeding, offering a shield against the shadows of our genetic past. How laws shape the landscape of inbreeding. As we navigate human relationships, we often find ourselves bound by the invisible threads of law. Laws concerning inbreeding are an intricate part of this web, woven together by societal norms, ethics, and health considerations. Many parts of the world have laws in place that prohibit close relatives from marrying, mainly to reduce the risk of harmful genetic outcomes. In the United States, for example, a patchwork of laws exists across different states. In places like Rhode Island and New Jersey, marriage between first cousins is legal, while other states like Texas and Arizona strictly prohibit it. This variation reflects the ongoing debate about personal freedoms versus public health concerns. A fascinating case in the history of inbreeding laws comes from South Korea. Until 1997, the country had a law known as the Same Surname and Same Origin Clause, which prohibited individuals with the same surname and ancestral origin from marrying regardless of the degree of relatedness. Originally designed to prevent inbreeding, this law came under scrutiny over time for being too restrictive and was eventually abolished following widespread societal debate. In 1935, in England, the Haldane sisters, Helen Spurway, wife of famed geneticist J.B.S. Haldane, and her sister Naomi Mitchison, found themselves in a peculiar situation. Both carried a gene for night blindness, a condition they didn't want to pass on to their children. This led them to explore the possibility of marrying the same man, assuming he didn't carry the gene. Though they never followed through, the case ignited a major public discussion about genetics, inbreeding, and the law, sparking conversations about genetic disorders and inheritance. Across the Atlantic in Brazil, a different approach was taken to combat inbreeding. In the isolated community of Canudos, where consanguineous marriages were common, health officials implemented an innovative program called the Programa Sá de Família, Family Health Program. Rather than relying on legal restrictions, the program focused on educating people about the genetic risks of inbreeding. By 2005, a significant decline in such marriages was observed, showing that education could be just as effective as legal measures in reducing inbreeding. Unraveling the tapestry of genetic disorders in inbred populations. In the tangled web of human genetics, certain patterns have emerged over the centuries, particularly in populations with high levels of inbreeding. These patterns often result in a higher prevalence of genetic disorders. One of the most well-known is cystic fibrosis, a life-threatening genetic disease that affects many people of European descent. Identified as a unique disease in 1938 by Dr. Dorothy Anderson, Cystic fibrosis likely originated around 3000 BC in the Fertile Crescent. It's believed that carriers of the cystic fibrosis gene had a survival advantage during cholera outbreaks because they were less likely to lose vital body fluids. However, today, the disease leads to severe respiratory and digestive problems. In the Middle East, thalassemia, another genetic disorder, tells a similar story. It affects the production of abnormal hemoglobin and was once a protective trait against malaria, much like sickle cell anemia in Africa. Today, in the absence of malaria, thalassemia has become a significant health burden. Historical records show that this condition has been prevalent in the region for centuries. In fact, ancient Greek texts by Hippocrates describe a disease that strongly resembles thalassemia, suggesting that its roots run deep in history. The isolation of island communities has also given rise to unique genetic conditions. On the island of Pinglap in the Pacific Ocean, a large portion of the population suffers from a rare condition called achromatopsia, or complete color blindness. This condition traces back to a typhoon in 1775, which left only 20 survivors, one of whom carried the achromatopsia gene. As the population grew from these survivors, the gene became widespread, leaving the community grappling with this condition. While these challenges are significant, modern science offers new hope. The advent of gene therapy, a technique that alters, removes, or introduces genetic material, has opened the door to treating inherited conditions. In 2017, the FDA approved the first-ever gene therapy for inherited blindness, a breakthrough that could extend conditions like cystic fibrosis and thalassemia, both of which are currently undergoing clinical trials. Additionally, preimplantation genetic diagnosis, a method that tests embryos for genetic disorders before implantation, provides families at risk of passing on genetic diseases the opportunity to have a child without those conditions. Inbreeding challenges in zoos and conservation programs. In the world of zoos and wildlife conservation programs, there is a delicate balance to strike when it comes to breeding practices. The goal is often to prevent inbreeding and encourage genetic diversity within populations of closely related species. One of the most notable examples of such efforts began in 1981, when the American Association of Zoos and Aquariums launched the Species Survival Plan, SSP, in response to the rapidly declining population of lowland gorillas. The SSP implemented a carefully structured breeding program, pairing individual gorillas based on their genetic profiles to ensure diversity within the population. This program has since been expanded to other species, underscoring the critical role zoos and conservation organizations play in preserving genetic diversity. However, these programs are not without their challenges. Take, for example, the Florida panther. By the mid-1990s, only 20 to 30 individuals remained in the wild, and the effects of inbreeding were becoming alarmingly clear. The panthers displayed heart defects, kinked tails, and low sperm count, all signs of genetic degradation. In response, a groundbreaking conservation effort took place in 1995 when 8 female Texas cougars were introduced to the Florida panther population. This infusion of fresh genetic material revitalized the panther population and highlighted the power of genetic diversity in conservation efforts. Similar challenges and solutions have unfolded in the Galapagos Islands. The Giant Tortoise Restoration Initiative, led by the Galapagos National Park Service and the Galapagos Conservancy, has faced the issue of inbreeding within the tortoise population. Through a genetic matchmaking program, they are ensuring the future survival of these iconic creatures by diversifying their gene pool. Conservationist Gerald Durrell famously said, "Saving a species is a long-term business." This is particularly true when balancing inbreeding management with habitat preservation, as seen in the efforts to reintroduce California condors into the wild. Despite successful breeding programs, these birds still face significant challenges, including habitat loss and lead poisoning. Inbreeding in fiction and media. Inbreeding has long been a topic explored in fiction and media, from literature to film. One of the most intriguing depictions can be found in George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, introduced in 1996 and adapted into a popular HBO series in 2011. The Lannister family, with its infamous members Cersei and Jaime, provides compelling narrative of aristocratic inbreeding. Born into one of the most powerful families in Westeros, Cersei and Jaime's secret relationship not only defies societal norms, but leads to the birth of 3 children who eventually wear the crown. Their story is a complex web of power, bloodlines, and distorted love, offering a nuanced take on the darker aspects of inbreeding. In a different light, The Crown, a Netflix original series that premiered in 2016, subtly touches on the practice of intermarriage within royal families. As it follows the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, the series occasionally explores the royal family's history of maintaining blue blood and its implications, subtly addressing the complexities of preserving a royal lineage while navigating the personal and political challenges that come with it. In the Spanish film The Nameless, 1999, a secret society indulges in inbreeding to create a pure lineage. This film highlights the sinister side of inbreeding, when it is driven by misguided ideologies about blood purity and societal control. Similarly, the Japanese manga and anime Koikaze, 2001, tells the story of a brother and sister unknowingly reunited after years of separation, leading to a romantic relationship that raises profound questions about societal norms and family bonds. The genetic legacy of inbreeding. As we reflect on the many layers of inbreeding's effects, whether in isolated communities' conservation efforts or media portrayals, it becomes clear that inbreeding's genetic implications are far-reaching. From the island of Pingelap to the conservation programs across the globe, the intricate dance between nature and genetics shapes the lives of countless individuals, species, and even entire cultures. As Charles Darwin wisely observed, the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, but stranger than we can imagine. Our genetic heritage, marked by the quirks of inbreeding and genetic isolation, often surprises us. But as we stand at the threshold of a new era in genetic science, we have the tools to not only understand our past, but also to shape a healthier, more prosperous future. The mysteries of our genes and the stories they tell continue to unfold, and as we move forward, we are empowered to rewrite some of these narratives, ensuring that the dance of nature and nurture leads to positive outcomes for all. As we reach the final chapter in our exploration of inbreeding, its implications, and its presence across both human history and the natural world, we are reminded of how interconnected our genetic legacies truly are. The intricate dance between nature, nurture, and genetics has shaped not only the course of human history, but also the fate of countless species across the globe. From the quiet isolation of Pingelap's population to the careful breeding programs and conservation efforts, like those for the Florida panther, the consequences of inbreeding have been as far-reaching as they are complex. But in these stories, there is also a profound lesson about the power of knowledge and adaptation. Inbreeding, for all its risks, is not an irreversible fate. As we've seen with advancements in gene therapy, genetic counseling, and cutting-edge techniques like pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, modern science offers hope. We no longer have to rely on fate alone to determine our genetic destiny. In fact, we now stand at the threshold of a new age, one that is defined by our ability to understand, shape, and even rewrite the genetic narratives of our past. This new era of genetic science is a testament to human ingenuity. Where once inbreeding led to the downfall of dynasties and the suffering of entire populations, now provides us with an opportunity to learn and grow. The human genome, once an unsolvable mystery, is now a map that guides us toward more informed, conscious decisions. We have the power to minimize genetic risks and to break the chains of harmful inheritance. By doing so, we can forge a future where health and prosperity are no longer hindered by the limitations of our genetic past. Yet, even as we advance in our understanding of genetics, the story of inbreeding is a reminder of the delicate balance between nature and culture. It's a narrative that challenges our assumptions about family, power, and purity, urging us to think more critically about the choices we make, both as individuals and as societies. As we've seen in the media portrayals of inbreeding, whether in fictional worlds like Game of Thrones or real-life royal histories, the consequences of these choices are far-reaching and complex. They show us that the desire for power, purity, or control can blind us to the inherent dangers of narrowing our genetic pool. In the natural world, the struggle for genetic diversity is no less significant. Conservation efforts for species like the Florida panther and Galapagos tortoises have demonstrated that even when nature's genetic resources are limited, intervention can help restore balance. It's a reminder that Much like in human society, there are times when external help is needed to ensure survival and vitality. Ultimately, the story of inbreeding is not one of doom, but of resilience and evolution. Whether we're looking at the survival of endangered species or the health of isolated communities, there's an undeniable thread of hope that runs through it all. It's a hope that comes from a knowledge that, with science, education, and thoughtful action, we can navigate the complexities of our genetic makeup and make choices that will secure a healthier future for generations to come. The mysteries of our genetic past, while deeply entrenched, are not beyond our ability to shape and redefine. And as we continue to learn, adapt, and grow, we hold in our hands the tools to ensure that the dance of life moves forward with harmony, health, and vitality. As we reflect on the broader implications of inbreeding, whether within human history, isolated communities, or endangered species, it's clear that we're facing challenges that are deeply intertwined with our past, but not necessarily destined to define our future. The advancement of genetic science has opened up a world of possibilities, allowing us to take control of our genetic destinies. With tools like gene therapy, genetic counseling, and educational programs, we can mitigate the risks that once seemed inescapable, offering a future where genetic disorders are less likely to affect generations to come. We are now more capable than ever of understanding the complex dance between our genetics and the environment, and with this understanding comes a power to act. By embracing scientific progress and promoting ethical, informed decision-making, we can rewrite the narratives that once held us captive to genetic limitations. The dance of inheritance continues, but now it is one that is guided by wisdom, compassion, and a commitment to a healthier, more sustainable future for all.